Hello and welcome to Courage to Overcome. Today I want to talk about how a person becomes a narcissist. Well, when I first found out about narcissism, I just wanted to know everything about it. I did quite a bit of research, and one of the main things I wanted to know was how people actually become narcissists. I was thinking, are they born that way or is it learned behavior? So during my research, I found out that this personality disorder develops due to some trauma suffered during the narcissist's early developmental stages of their life. That's during the formative early years. So during our formative years, we learn certain skills that help us later on in life, such as reading, writing, etc. We also learn other important skills, such as learning how to regulate and control our emotions. We learn empathy, emotional intelligence, and, other coping strategies. However, if the environment is not conducive to learning and developing the latter important skill, then a personality disorder may develop. So this trauma could be emotional, sexual, physical, psychological abuse, or neglect. So this trauma happened before the stage when the young child would have learnt emotional development like empathy and compassion for others. Because their emotional development was stunted and they did not learn normal emotional responses, they can get out of control with their own emotions. That's why when an adult narcissist's feelings flares up, he behaves like a little child because he didn't learn how to respond in a normal way. So the above is one way a narcissist develops. Another way is when the narcissist's parents were emotionally or physically unavailable and the needs of the child were ignored and or rejected, and in some cases one of the parents or both is a narcissist. Because the child's needs are not met by either parent, the child begins to focus more on his own needs, on his own world, to the exclusion of everyone else. He learns to take care of only himself, and there is no one to guide the child, to teach him empathy and how to care for people other than himself. He becomes more focused on himself, hence the extreme selfishness in narcissists. As they grow older and reach out to their parents for acceptance, validation and approval, they are often rejected. I can verify that the above is correct, as I used to work in mental health, supporting people with mental health conditions, and I have supported clients with schizophrenia, depression, anxiety, bipolar, and also diagnosed NPD. And you know that narcissists love attention, so I had one of my clients, and I had one narcissist tell me about how when he was in school, he was naturally very bright and he knew the way to get approval was to do very well in school. That was the only way he could get his father's approval and approval from authority figures in his life. As his father was always very busy traveling a lot and pretty much left him to himself, really. His mother died when he was very young and his mother remarried, and his stepmother neglected him and his older sister. His father used to travel a lot. During that time, she didn't care whether he had anything to eat, but she fed her own children. And so according to him, he would have to find food in the dustbin, or some neighbors would give him something to eat. When his father was around, he didn't pay him any attention at all. They basically abandoned him and, just neglected him. And the only time he ever got attention was when he did well in school or when he misbehaved. So just to get attention, he would either misbehave or do really well in school. That was the only way that he could get some kind of attention to himself. So he learnt to survive and take care of himself. And his father would go on trips abroad and buy clothes and things for the children, but his stepmother would not give him anything. Can you imagine how it would feel? He described a situation whereby his father would return from one of his trips and buy all these things for the children, and I'm sure he must have bought something for him, but the evil stepmother decided to keep his own gift and not give it to him. So she would be, all the children would be sitting down excited, all sitting down together, and he would be there And he will say, "Oh, this is what your father gave you. Oh, this is what your father gave you. Oh, this is what oh, I'm sorry. I can't find anything. Your dad didn't give you anything, you know?" So that is really bad. That's really, really horrible. So he felt really excluded from the family and didn't feel like he was part of the family at all. So he suffered a lot of neglect from his caregivers. So it's just so sad that adults can behave in such a manner, but it does happen. So yeah, so in such cases, the child basically has to fend for themselves, and as they grow older, they believe that nobody cares or loves them, and nobody can be trusted because they're all fake. So these thoughts play out in their head all the time, and they believe it. And the reason why this happens is because if a child is rejected or ignored by the parent, then the child believes that there is something wrong with them. Children, most of the time, for example, sometimes if parents get divorced or whatever, sometimes the children would believe that it's them. It's only when you sit down with the child and say, no, it's not because of you. This is the reason why we're divorcing. So, yeah, children most of the time have the tendency to blame themselves if anything bad happens in the home. So the child will begin to believe that they are worthless and damaged. And so as they grow older, they try to cover it all up. They have to try to cover all that trauma up and everything by creating this or developing this alter ego or image of themselves that can do no wrong, that is perfect, that is above reproach. So that alter ego becomes part of them, becomes them. And they are this charming, charismatic, affable, altruistic person. So instead of being healed from the trauma, they kind of cover it up. And yeah, so that's how the narcissism develops. So in the situation where the parent is a narcissist, for example, the mother is a narcissist and the child is rejected by the mother and ignored by the father, who is trying to cope with the mother's toxic behavior, the child learns to take care of himself. This is another scenario, by the way. The only time they pay attention to him is when people visit, but as soon as they're gone, both parents revert back to the same behavior. The parents will give him everything he wants or desires, except for what he needs, which is love, validation, and acceptance, which explains why the child will later on in life conclude that all people are fake and everyone is out to get what they want. The child will associate having everything they want as a sign of love. He has not been taught any different. This also happens to very spoiled children who are given everything they want. They have never been told no by their parents. So when they become adults, they associate denial with lack of love. As adults, they explode in anger when they are denied anything, very much like a child, which is why as an adult, they always have a childlike view of things of that nature because they have not been instructed by their caregivers on how to mature and appropriate a healthy outlook on life. So they grow up as adults on the outside and toddlers on the inside. People with the intellect and experience of an adult, but the emotional capabilities of an infant. So a narcissist becomes a narcissist through neglect, abandonment, overindulgence, and abuse. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope to meet with you again in my next episode. So take care and God bless.